Hey guys, I got Gina Oster back in the house. We're going to go over some of this situation of between her and Eddie Manis as far as the actual rules that were in play here and how this whole thing actually works out in the reality version of it versus what the perception probably came off. I think I've got a good feel for it, so we're going to talk about it and see if I understand it correctly, and then I'm going to go back into some of the other stuff I like to talk about and ask her about, how the actual process was for her despite this part and all the other kind of stuff like that. So we're a little bit on the clock, so I'm going to get the intro out of the way. We're almost agreement at gmail.com. And here's Gina, everybody. Gina, hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for getting back. We had a little bit of a back and forth trying to get this rescheduled. And first of all,
it's been a busy time.
I have to start with a big thank you for being willing to sit with us the first time you did, because I don't know how many other episodes you've listened to. Almost every other interview I bring up how appreciative I am of you for taking the chance on us, because you were our first legitimate candidate interview.
I have heard that, and I appreciate that a lot.
And
so.
I don't know, it felt natural to me to be able to dig in and ask some of these questions. And I think one of the things I reference a bunch of times is that when you and I started talking, and then I started trying to prepare for an interview, I'm thinking to myself, I want to try real hard and put together a really well-structured thing. And the access to information wasn't there, which was kind of the genesis of what we were doing with this side of the show anyway. And so now I'm intentionally ignorant instead of unintentionally ignorant. But nonetheless, I appreciate your patience with us and letting us be kind of dumb. And that's kind of, again, I think there are a lot of people like me who don't understand what's going on around them, and either don't have the time or energy to go look into it, or don't care that much, or aren't willing to look stupid like I am and ask the stupid questions. So for that, I thank you very much for being patient and answering the stupid questions. And I just wanted to get that out up front and say thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate being able to get my side out there. That's obviously not been a high priority for some people. So I kind of felt like maybe ask me, and that might be helpful for people to understand.
Right, because one of the things, especially with your situation, that was really frustrating to me is, like I said, from the front end, there was nothing about you that wasn't produced by you that I could find when we were trying to interview you. The only thing I found before our first interview was WVLT had a little 300-word article that was literally just, this is the race, this person versus this person for the primary, and then we have this other person that's on the other side of the ticket when we get to the general. That was all I really found on you from a third party. And the more I'm getting into this, the more frustrated I am about the knowledge. And then with the specific of the kind of post-primary battle, for lack of a better word, I mean, there were two very light articles that the News Sentinel put out that it didn't feel like what I understood it to be. And so this is
Right.
where I wanted to, we talked before, so I want to try to explain how I understand what's going on, and you can help correct me and see if I'm completely off base. So the front end,
Okay.
the number one thing, prior even to the primary, the state board voted to remove Eddie Manis from the Republican primary.
Correct.
And something happened where that did not get transferred or passed along correctly in the right format or something like that. So at some point, the decision was with the chair, and with the inside the bylaws, with the vouching system that's in place, there were elected Republicans, not necessarily party Republicans, but elected Republicans that got on and vouched for Eddie Manis, which got him which the state chair was able to make the decision correctly, and I used correctly softly there, but at least within the bylaws was able to make that decision on his own to allow Eddie to stay on the primary. Am I right so far?
You're about right there.
Okay.
The problem with the chairman is he actually overstepped his bounds. And that's actually what Matt Coleman, who sits on the SEC board, was talking about the night I think you were on the phone call.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the issue. So what happened, and I'm just going to reverse it just a smidge, and then I think we're going to be like parallel on the same road.
Okay.
So Eddie voted in the Democratic presidential primary in March. 15 days later, he picked up his petition to run as a Republican.
Right.
I believe that you talked to, because I listened to the podcast with Randy Pace.
Right.
And Randy explained to you that on the county level, Eddie didn't qualify as a Republican. So the Republican Party and the Democrat
Right, because
their
there's
what
there's
what a bona fide Republican or Democrat is.
right, and that part of one of the big things that's in the bylaws is that in the past, I don't remember what the full number was, but it's like 8 or 10 elections that you pull a Republican primary is one of the factors, which Eddie failed.
One of the factors, who you give money to,
right.
That kind of stuff. So, okay, so he didn't qualify under their rules. It went to the state executive committee in April, and it was a overwhelming response to keep him off of the ballot.
Right.
In the meantime, Jeremy Faison, who's the chairman of the caucus in Nashville, got with Richard Briggs, who's our state senator, and they decided that they were going to pull out this bylaw and they were going to have people vouch for Mr. Maness. So Tim Burchett, Richard Briggs, Glenn Jacobs all vouched for Mr. Maness.
Okay.
Now, the problem that I have with the vouch system, and thank goodness the bylaw committee is actually looking at this, because this is the problem that I've got. If you give money to a representative, that representative more than likely is going to write a letter for you and say he's a Republican.
Right.
That's what happened. And that for me is not the right way to go about things.
Right,
if you qualify, then you qualify. And if you don't, you don't. I don't think it's right for members of our party to pick and choose who they want on the ballot, and then they find ways to skirt around the system. And that's what happened. And
right. And that's what, and
not sour grapes. It's just
right.
facts.
And that's how I'm tracking this as well. And the way Randy described it too, is there's a big difference in being a member of the party and an elected official that ran under the party banner. They're not necessarily the same thing. And I think that's one of the things that for layperson me is confusing, is that, because I remember that was one of the things we talked about in the first interview. It's like, well, what is the process of being a Republican? What does that mean? And how do you go through getting that permission to put the R next to your name in it? And then, we had Chris Davis in here and I talked to him about it, and the election commission doesn't care. Whatever you say, they'll put next to you. And then it's a matter of whether the county or depending on which applies, which group of the party is going to say yay or nay on that down the road. Which I think I have a grasp of it and I understand it. And I think one of the things, again, that the layperson doesn't understand about what happened is that a primary is not an election. It's not, it's supposed to be the party's chance to get to put the question to the public, but not to necessarily ask the public's permission on which one they're allowed to use or not. I guess that's not the best way I could word it, but it's my understanding that it's not an election in the winner loser flat out kind of thing. It's that it's more about the Republicans who vote in that primary getting to voice their opinion on which candidate they like. So I guess, because part of the complaint is that there was 110 or so. 113 of what we would consider either independents or Democrats that voted in that pulled that Republican primary, and that's public record that we can find that out.
Correct.
Which is one of the things that I take a little bit of issue with personally, but I get it. And the vote total difference was like 90. So assuming, which we don't know who they voted for in the primaries, but the assumption being that at least a large enough number of them put Eddie down, giving him the win, but it wasn't Republicans voting on it. And so again, I think that's the most confusing thing. I think I get it, but I don't think I can understand how most people don't quite understand what we're trying to say here, and that that it's supposed to be a chance for Republicans to talk amongst themselves. It's not a general election where the general populace gets to pick, which, see, this is where I get lost personally, because I understand that it makes sense to me, but at the same time, I like the open ballot system or the open primary system because it gives me a chance to voice opinions on things, to try to get the best candidate in the position through the primary, in my opinion, who, if we were a closed ballot state, I don't know if I'd be a registered Republican or not.
Right.
And so like I get it. I think I think I really understand the reasonings behind it, but I don't think the public gets it. Like I
Right.
wouldn't if we didn't do this and I didn't sit through that meeting and I didn't have Randy Pace in here, I don't think I would understand why there was a question there. And now that I get it, I totally understand it, because for all intents and purposes, it is pretty clear that Republicans were kind of split pretty evenly between the two of you, and then a foreign body of 113 people came in, and then now we have a clear winner, but not by a huge number.
Right.
And then
so that's kind of the issue. So
right. Then when we step back to the
was,
portion where he was technically disqualified, and then there was an overreach by the chair.
right.
That, you know, he shouldn't have been even on there in the first place. The problem to me, I guess, and again, this isn't to go against you at all, but just trying to understand, the problem to me is an individual like Eddie, I guess, should have ran as an independent, I think, is where he screwed up.
Exactly. Yep.
Even though he feels like he's more Republican than a Democrat. But the problem the problem that illustrates to me is that the system as it sits doesn't really, I don't know the stats. I should have asked Chris when he was in here. When is the last time an independent won any seat in East Tennessee?
Right. Well, and that's why in this district and in quite a few districts in Knox County, that, you know, you're not going to want to run as an independent, and that's what that is. So I understand that. My issue with the SEC was, if you're going to have rules, follow them.
Right.
If you want to protect your Republican primaries, then follow the rules,
right.
Or don't have them and just let it be open and do whatever anybody wants to do. And you can be a Republican, Democrat, an independent, a libertarian, whatever. But my issue is, I've been a Republican all my life.
Right. And it's not continuity within 18, the power.
And, you know, I'm 51 and I'm proud of my party.
A fantastic looking 51. Be nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It depends on what day that is, but
well, that's why we're not doing it. I'm not having a pretty day, so that's why we're not doing it with cameras.
So that's my issue, and the vouching system is a real issue to me, because like I say, if you are a candidate and you've given money to one of these representatives and they're going to write you a letter, now, you know, that's a problem for me as a voter. That's a problem for me because if you look and you say, okay, well, he voted in the Democratic presidential primary, and we're in a pretty partisan part in our country right now. Okay?
But here's the pushback just a little bit. The pushback that to me is that there was no, there was technically, but there was no Republican primary. And again, as a lay voter, and I get it on the party side, but as a lay voter, I picked up a Democratic presidential primary because I am trying to get the best Democrat to run against Trump, because I don't get to pick against Trump. And so I want to have the two best people on possible in the conversation. And I didn't vote for Biden. I promise that. But,
good. I
prefer people that I prefer people that will likely be alive for the term of service, but
know where they are.
You know, and because then essentially we have we'll have an indirectly appointed president if he doesn't make it, and she failed miserably in the primary, but that's the side story. Sorry, but for me, if in my goal of having the best possible candidates available, I would have pulled that one. Or I did pull that one because there was no Republican primary to really discuss. I mean, we had Bill Weld, who tried to be a libertarian. He was a terrible one of those. And then all of a sudden he comes back to the Republican Party because all he does is jump around to whatever makes sense to him at the time, that he might have a better chance at doing stuff. And so he jumped back into the Republican Party to run for president. But again, it's an incumbent primary, which just doesn't do anything. So I get the premise of why he might have wanted to do that, not to make decisions or apologies for him by any means. But the problem to me and again, Randy dropped the bylaws off for me and I've read through most of them. The problem to me is that what happens if I change my mind? Like Candace Owens is a great example that's popping off the top of my head. Like, she was a lifelong Democrat until I think a couple of years, I was like 7 years ago. I think she got a Friedman book from a friend, started reading through it, and then totally flipped. And she is a pretty staunch conservative right now. But by the rules, she couldn't run. Right. Because for all intents and purposes matured into a new person over the especially I remember when I was 25, I was a super idiot.
Well,
I'd go.
we all had our moments, but the problem with the way that this happened was this. It wasn't just the presidential Democratic primary.
Right, there's a
Mr.
donation
Manis
in there as
donated
well.
money
Right.
he donated money to the DNC in January. He gave $1,500 to Carl Dean when Governor Lee was now the nominee. I turned in people just, they talked about the letter that I sent. I had to, if I wanted this to be brought to the attention of the SEC, that this was a problem that should have been dealt with in April, which it landed at them, then I had to start this ball rolling.
Right.
My ultimate goal was not to get back on the ballot.
Right.
It was not sour grapes.
Right. There's a problem that everybody knows exists. Right, because apparently they've been trying to close the primaries for a while, and there's this problem everybody knows.
You're probably not going to get that, because let's be honest, some Republicans, if they are in a higher Democratic area, then they're going to need the crossover votes.
Right.
And that happens in Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee. I mean, you don't see it as much in East Tennessee as you do, Middle and West, but that's an issue. But my thing was, if we're going to have these rules, and I turned in 11 exhibits that proved the case. So my point was saying this was a problem that should have been dealt with. You allowed the chairman to overstep his bounds, and I think you heard on the phone call, there's a good possibility that this may not be finished.
Right.
Not with me. I'm done.
Right.
But this could be an issue down the road. So they have got to tighten up their rules, live by their rules, and all the members need to understand their rules.
Right.
And if they don't like those rules, they have all the power in the world to change those, because the court has given the SEC the ultimate decision on this.
Right.
So that is where I'm at. Now, I want to say this because I ran a very clean campaign. I do not have one negative thing to say about Mr. Manis. And the only thing that I can say is I don't feel like he's a Republican. That's it. That's my feeling about it,
right.
Just from what I have. I have no ill will towards Mr. Manis, and I haven't. It's not been about that.
Right.
This has been about something that I felt was strong enough to say this Republican Party needs to be protected. And if you are going to have these rules need to be followed. And that is where I was coming down on it. So, Like I say, it wasn't the ultimate, wow, put me back on the ballot. It wasn't that. It was, you guys may have some serious legal issues down the road. And if you don't on this one, you might skirt by it, but you very well could have another problem if you allow this.
Right.
My other question was, why do we have representatives being so hell-bent on getting a particular person on the ballot? I think that's a reasonable question. Look, we're in a bad state in our country right now because people aren't asking questions. We're just kind of sheep. Everybody's just kind of following the herd.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. And I'm not the villain for standing up and saying, this isn't right. I want these questions answered. And I have a right to do that.
Right. And
because I ran a campaign, and I feel that I have that right to be able to do that. I didn't have to have anybody vouch for me because my record proved itself.
Right.
So there wasn't an issue with me. There was an issue on that. So in my letter, and I think you played a part of it the other night, so I was actually listening as we were heading to the beach. So I listened to your shows, but
well, you get referenced a lot, so it's a good ego booster for you.
Yeah, I did say that when I was at the door talking to voters, that I told them that I promised them that I would stand up for them, and I would stand for what I felt was right for District 18,
right.
And that wasn't just for the election, and I meant that. So was it fun putting myself through that couple of weeks and reading just nasty stuff and, just like I was the, wicked witch? No, but it was my conviction that I felt like this is an issue and this needs to be dealt with. That was not my end goal to get back on. I didn't expect to be. I'm fine that I'm not. But this has to be taken care of. And as the board, since it lands at their feet and they're responsible for this, it's stuff that they need to take care of and they need to deal with. Now, luckily, the bylaw committee is actually looking at that and getting rid of the vouch system, because I think if you are a Republican or if you are a Democrat and that's what you want to run under and that's what you say you identify with, then you shouldn't have to have anybody vouch for you. You
Right.
should just be like, oh, this is where my money or my time or my votes go. Okay, you qualify, we're good to go.
Right. And
So
I think the problem, I mean, the problem I think is that we have, it's so, I don't know that, I think this applies universally, is that trying to make room for an exception because you should, because it's the right thing to do, opens up exceptions for kind of dirty versions of the same thing. And that's like, there's, you know, we had on the last main show, Sam and I had a big long argument about the Electoral College and whether it's the right way to do it or not. And it's like, I get it one way and I get it the other way, and neither are perfect. And to try to figure out a more perfect version of doing this in the future seems to be your intent. Like, I feel like you did a good job, at least for me personally, making me understand what was actually happening here. That it, you know, because I think a lot of the lay people that don't really understand how these rules and how these different things overlap, they don't understand that this isn't about, you know, the party not listening to the voter per se. It's that the party screwed up before it got to the voter, and they're trying to backtrack the party's trying to backtrack and fix the problem now that it's been fully illustrated. Like, this is one of the illustrations of the worst case scenarios of the bylaws at work.
This right here was a great test case. I wish it hadn't been me,
right?
But it was a great test case,
right?
For them to say, okay, this has to be tightened up, and we have to change some of this kind of stuff, because it does land with them.
Right.
And I would say 99% of the regular voters don't realize that there's actually an SEC out there who qualifies the candidates and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, because there's a lot of people that's told me, like, I didn't even know that existed. I'm like, well, no, because it's not something that's in like everyday talk,
right?
Or it's not like in the news. We just don't. But if you're in Politico, then you know that stuff.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people kind of assume everybody knows that because they do, and that's just not the case. So that's why I really wanted to be able to say, this is what it was about.
Right.
Great test case, and I hate that it ended that way. I mean, I've talked about it with my husband. I prayed about it. And my oldest son said, Mom, you've never backed down for something that you thought was right. And you can't start now. So, and that's true, because I fought for District 18 over the years for a lot of different things, and especially for our schools. And so it wasn't something that I felt like that I could just back down from. But it wasn't a sore loser thing. It was a principle, and 66 members have a big responsibility on the SEC.
Right.
And I'm hoping that if nothing else, that now they get their rules out and they get their bylaws out, and they really, really, really understand how important their job is, because it is a big deal.
I mean, it is. If nothing else, like, you know, I don't know that it's important per se that the lay public understands the inner workings of how this went down, or even that they need to in future versions of it or whatever. But the perception of impropriety is a huge negative for the party. Of people that don't understand and don't necessarily need to understand, trying to all of a sudden wrap their head around something like this. Because again, I don't know what the right solution is, but I can't see, like, I wouldn't, if I hadn't talked to you and then sat in on that meeting and had Randy in here and all that stuff, I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. And I don't, like, this is, we've talked about it plenty of times on other shows. I did one dedicated show fully to this issue, and I'm still trying to fully wrap my head around what's going on, because I don't know what it means, as a lay voter. Like, what does this mean to me? And again, I think this is something I always argue about anyway. I think one of the problems is that the independent or third party, like, it's one of the things I don't like about the system as it sits. And I talked to Chris Davis about how to get other parties that actually get ballot affiliation instead of just independent. But like, I really think if I think about it as a lay voter, I don't know what Republicans are anymore. I don't know what Democrats are anymore as far as like these are the pillars of the platform like I used to. And
Right.
I think that's part of where the erosion is coming from. And people on the other side of this, it's like, there's probably, I don't know what again, not knowing what the pillars are, but I'm sure Eddie stands behind a handful of those pillars, but maybe not all of them. And is it at least from the party's perspective, is it an all or nothing thing, or is there a 70% on board with the things?
It's actually, and I've got this pulled up for you. I've got all kinds of legal papers here, but
I mean, I've got the bylaws too, and I get the rules part of it, but so, it's the what the actual, regardless of if I've voted in Republican primaries my entire life, and if at any time I've ever donated to a candidate, it's always been a Republican candidate, and I can prove that and all that stuff. But I don't know, but like let's say I'm a pro-choice person. And since I'm a pro-choice person, that's one of the pillars on the Republican ticket right now is to not be a pro-choice person, to be a pro-life person. And it's like, but everything else, I'm fiscally conservative. I want to minimize the role of government in day-to-day life and this, that, and the other and all these different things. But of the 8 pillars of the Republicanism in 2020, I stand against one of them, but stand on top of the other 7. Am I still allowed to be a Republican because I followed the rules? But I'm antithetical to one specific issue that's on the thing, and so I don't know. Again, we joke about this all the time. All these little boxes and these tribes that we put ourselves in, and my concern is that there's no room for the gray area inside your box. Whether you have to be fully in that box, because if you stick a toe out, you're going to lose it, or you get kicked out of the whole box, I guess, for a better analogy. And so that's my concern as a general citizen, is that it concerns me, again, not going against the rules, not going against anything that you're running or you're standing for in this situation. I think it was very brave what you did, because realistically, I don't think the party, even though they probably wanted to, I don't think the party could handle the optics to take it away from Eddie and give it back to you. I think they painted themselves into the corner that they had to do what they did. And
they were definitely in that situation. And I mean, they obviously had the Knox County delegation write letters and calling them. And, I mean, politics is alive and well in Knox County. And just when you think there's a little shed of light, it rears its ugly head again. But, and so they obviously weren't going to do that. And like I say, I was okay with that. Honestly, when I got off the phone that night, that was probably the most relieved I've been since this whole process has even started.
Picking a fight that you know you're going to lose because you need to show the fight is a much harder decision than I needed to do. Right. That is a much braver and harder decision than picking a fight that you think you could actually win. Knowing you're going to lose the fight, but doing it anyway because you need people to see the fight, because the reason there is a fight is the problem, not the winner or loser of the fight. And I think that's, I think that's incredibly brave as the more I think about it. There's no way you're getting out of this not looking terrible, but you get to go home.
I mean,
you get to go home at the end of this and be proud of yourself for doing what you knew to be the right thing to do and shedding light on a big problem that the party has.
A big problem. I could have, a day after the letter was sent, I got a text that it summed up that if I was a good girl and removed my complaint and sat there for 2 years, then people would remember that. I don't think that text came across the way that person was hoping it was going to, because it just kind of fueled me a little bit more. Right. And I was just kind of like, all right, I'm dug in. And again, it was never about Eddie. It was bigger than myself and Eddie.
Right.
It was backtrack. This is what happened, and this is what could happen, and what did happen because you all allowed this to happen, and you don't need to let it happen again. So however you can, as a collective group, come to that realization, you need to do it because this is an issue. And I hope there's not going to be any more issues from here on out. And like I say, I think it has really brought a huge awareness to those SEC members of WOW. And some of them didn't even realize that they gave the chairman that much power that he wasn't supposed to have.
Right.
So, yeah, don't send me a text and like, yeah, no, I mean, no, I
What do
just,
they say about sleeping dogs? Right? You let them.
yeah, I mean, don't poke the bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't poke the bear. So that's what that was. And people are going to have their opinion, and I'm not. I can't live my life worrying about what their opinions are. I have to say this is what I felt like was the right thing to do, and it brought light. There's so many people talking about this now on what does need to be changed. That was real. That was my ultimate goal of, guys, this is this issue, and you need to fix it. So
Right. I mean,
that night
honestly,
when
if
that
it
phone
was
call
just
was
about
over,
you, you would have we would have had that meeting on Wednesday, and you pack it up and go back to doing your day job and not talk about it anymore. Why would you continue to talk about it right now
right?
if you were, yeah, that is, yeah, I think, yeah, I think your actions and such speak to exactly what you mean, in
Yep.
that this is not about me and Eddie. This is about, there's a, there's a hole in the rules that we need to figure out how to close.
Yep. Yep. And 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 especially with that vouch system, because that's just a real problem for me. And it was a real problem for me when I found out, because I mean, I got the call. Obviously, I'd already pulled my ballot, and I think by that time I've already turned my names and had them verified and everything in. And I was like, so just anybody with a name or position can vouch? That just is not right. So it was obviously, honestly, had I made it to November, or past November, the December SEC meeting, I had planned on already going to, and bringing this to their attention, as a representative, because, and the representatives need to go to the SEC meetings. I don't think many of those do that, and they need to know what's going on, because it affects
what they all
you know?
need, both the party, or I guess more the actual party members, they all need a lesson in conference calling.
Was that not a cluster?
I mean, I'll joke about how hard our Scouts pack meetings are going through Zoom and stuff like that, but I at least have the crutch of all the members of my meetings are kids.
Well, I felt like, well, yeah, that's.
I'll tell you what, though, my highlight of the whole thing, and I mentioned it in the recap episode, I tried to pull the clip and I screwed it up and to get to play it. Somebody has a dog named Trump, and that cracked me up when she was yelling at Trump to shut up. I was like, that's funny. But
that's good. That's good.
Okay, so
yeah, that's what it was, and I really appreciate you letting me kind of air my side out.
I think it's
be able to get that out there,
right, because I think I fully agree with you that it is a very, like Kyle Ward was on a while back, and I'm trying to get him back on now that he got his seat, but he made reference to like behind the curtain, and I don't really like that as a premise. I understand that it's there. And, you know, this was a good peek behind the curtain of what goes on in these meetings and stuff like that. And, you know, they're obviously open to the public because of Sunshine Law and stuff like that a lot of the time, but nobody really pays attention because it's nothing really exciting like it was this time. And so kind of getting that peek and like, oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff, you know, again, like I would not, it didn't click in my head at all what a primary was until this situation came up.
right?
Like it's not about who the public wants to be on one part of a ticket. It's supposed to be who the party wants and the members and voters of that party. And so, I mean, it all makes sense. I can't quite wrap my head around a better way to do it, but it makes sense why this issue could come up, and that there are probably smarter people that can figure out better ways to deal with it to not have this issue in the future. But again, it's just, it's such a unique situation that we got to actually see, where we wouldn't, where I wouldn't have got that to see. I mean, even if this had happened and we weren't doing the show, I don't know if I would have noticed it. But I think there's value in that for, I mean, again, I've gone on a real tirade and I'm mad at voters. I'm mad at us as voters because we've had numbers of conversations about term limits and all this different kind of stuff. And it's like, it's on me. And it's on the listeners of the show that aren't candidates, and it's technically on you too because you're a voter too. It's on me and you as voters. It's not about making some rule and pushing some rule through so that we can keep being lazy voters. No, go out there and vote and get on it. And if some of these issues with the party stuff is a problem to you, and if you're out there and identify as a Republican and are like, this is wrong, this isn't the way things should be done, then you need to get active with your party and get in there and
Right.
and motivate change in the party to do things moving forward. Because I think, again, I think to me one of the biggest issues, and Trump certainly holds some of the bag for this one, is that I'm not sure I know what a Republican is anymore. Like, I get the rules part of, like, I vote Republican or whatever. That makes me a Republican by the rules. But, like, what are the I don't I like, because it used to be that, the small government, the pro life, the those kind of things, the fiscal responsibility things used to be like, that was what everybody screamed about when you were a Republican candidate, where it
Right.
was like social issues and pro-choice, and generally it used to be the left was the more anti-war side, but that seems to have changed too now. And so I don't like, it's so strange to me that as we have gotten so much more partisan over the last few years, that the clarity of what the parties are has kind of dissipated at the same time.
It makes it tough because it's definitely a different Republican Party than when I started voting. When I was 18, 100 years ago. And it's definitely different. People would ask me at the door, if I was conservative. And I'm a conservative Republican. I got endorsed by the NRA. I was the only open seat primary candidate to be endorsed by the NRA. I own 2 guns. I'm happy with that. Tennessee Right to Life endorsed me because I'm pro-life, and I'm small government. I don't think we have got, and this is a great example, I think, of just what we're going through right now with all these masks and these close downs and these mandates, that there's been so much government overreach since March that it makes my head want to fly off my body. I don't need the government to tell me what I need to wear when I walk into a store or to a restaurant, or when I can go and what time I can stop and all that stuff. So I think that's where I've always identified as a conservative Republican.
Right.
And I haven't really changed my position, because those are kind of positions that kind of stay with you, pro-life, and
but I think on
gun and that kind of stuff. But it's harder now to maybe identify what you are. I mean, the Democrat Party is definitely not the same party as my grandparents' party.
Right.
That doesn't even look the same anymore. So, it's a weird situation. I just, on this situation, it was unique because you had 2 people running as Republicans, but then you had that question hanging over the one.
Right.
And so you've got voters who, his voters were happy, and my voters aren't, which is normal, right? I mean, because whoever wins and loses, you're going to have your side and the other side. I mean, That's how that goes. But I've had some voters be like, in my mind, he's not a Republican.
Right.
And I said, well, I mean, he's your Republican nominee now, and that's what that is. So, that's what we have to kind of come to grips with. And that's just where the SEC just put everybody in a really bad situation with this. Yeah. And it shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have happened. And that's where we're at now, looking back, saying months ago,
right,
this shouldn't have happened.
Right. And again, I think one of the,
really we're done with that.
Right. But, and again, and this is not necessarily the party's fault either, but I think that there's a weirdism of, for lack of a better word, being a more fluid individual wanting to run for office. Like, because like for me, for example, like I joked about it when you were on here. I'd probably not start with the state level. I'd probably start in the school board or county commission or something like that. I can't run as either party. I've pulled different primaries over the years. I've donated to different candidates over the years from different parties and stuff like that. And I wouldn't necessarily strongly identify with the pillars that I don't know that exist for either party either. But that's also then handicapping my ability to run. Now, on a county level, I could probably get away with it. Realistically, yeah. It probably wouldn't be as big a deal if I'm running for county commission or something like that. But if I was to go into state level, if I was to run for for District 18 like you did, I would have to run as an independent. And the grander scheme of the way politics works is that's basically just a running to lose. And I think that's a separate problem that has nothing to do with the Republican Party. That's actually a good thing for the Republican Party and the Democrats for that matter. But I think you have a much steeper hill to climb if you can't pass the bylaws to run as Party A or Party B, and especially when you get into real specific seats. Like if you get into District 1 in County Commission in Knox County, it's the primary is the election.
Right.
9 times out of 10 there is no Republican on that in the general, and if there is, it's like a 10% if they're lucky.
Right.
And so because I've made that joke a lot, like historically at least, to my knowledge, District 18 is almost always a Republican, and so in my mind it was whoever wins this primary gets the seat. I don't know if that's true this time around. Virginia Couch was a very good interview. I enjoyed her a lot, and she doesn't, as far as I could tell, she's not a super progressive Democrat, and so I think she's got appeal in this race, and it may change that from a longstanding red position. But I think that's one of the bigger problems that's going on right now is that they're I think as the internet and podcasts and all these different things, or people that are starting to get interested in stuff start getting down to it. It's like, well, I don't check either box correctly. What do I do?
Right.
But I know now, watching things happen, that to check that third box is basically just to waste my time and money and not really have a
it's
shot.
going to be, I mean, it's definitely going to be hard because, the Republicans are going to put behind their money behind the Republican, and the same with the Democrats.
Right.
And as an independent, you're kind of blowing out there in the wind.
Oh, and the other question would be, what happens to
really
me?
Have to raise it organically,
Huh. What would happen to me if I donated to an independent candidate and then ran as a Republican? I don't know. You don't have to answer that. I'm just throwing crazy ideas out there. But
I'm glad I don't sit on the SEC board. We'll just say that.
Right. Especially after you came along and made it harder.
That's exactly right. Well, why not? But I figure,
hey, they got to work for it. They have a job to do.
Well,
it's not about just sitting there and keeping the status quo. It's about doing what's right for the people they represent.
It's not I sit on a board right now that is taking a lot of my time, and I don't get paid for it. And the SEC members don't get paid for that position. And so, it's not like they're getting wealthy off of doing this. I mean, they're taking it because they really do. I really believe that they all care about the Republican Party.
Right.
And, but there was a little bit of confusion on how it all went down, but
and how to
like
work
I said,
conference call.
I just shed the light on it, and I think that is a good thing. I don't think it's ever a bad thing. And you probably tell your kids this: there's not a stupid question, and
just stupid people asking questions. That's what I say.
Well, there you go. But I don't feel bad for bringing that to the attention, and I don't feel bad for standing up for what I felt was right, for my district.
And as a constituent of your district, and as just as a human being, I appreciate that you did that. And then on a third level, as a content creator, I have more content because you did it, and I appreciate that part too. But I mean, again, I think it's important. I don't necessarily think it's important that we, the lay public, understand what the party's doing. But I think it's important that the party doesn't have situations like this moving forward, because it raises questions from the public. It's not trying to hide things. I'm not trying to say they need to hide it from us as the public, but this lack of clarity makes things, it just makes things confusing as a voter and as a constituent. And what do I do, and what's going on with this kind of thing? And especially when it's it's a pretty solid rule book that they put in place already. They just need to clean. They just need to clean some, maybe retract some rules that are old and out of date or something like that. And so it makes sense. I don't know. It's just fascinating to me. I'm glad you exist and I'm not you in this situation. But so what? I mean, so what now? So this the case has been stated. The light has been shed on the issue. And they're going to go figure out what they're going to do. You're just going to roll back into the real estate game and your other 50,000 activities that you do and put politics to bed, or is this going to be a couple of years down the road? You're going to have to come back and put the smack down.
I don't know. it's going to take me a little while for the bruises to go away. And then, I mean, we'll talk about, I'm never going to not be doing things to serve District 18, whether that's official capacity or whether it's not. Like, you know, right now I sit on the Sheriff's Merit Council. It's something that I love to do and something so incredibly important right now with the environment that the police officers are in.
True story.
Thank God that we don't have, we have not been experiencing the issues that some other states have been experiencing.
Well, you need to get on their wildlife training because they need to get better at catching tigers.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely need to work on that. We may have to put a committee together for that.
I'm convinced that was not a hoax, just an accident. And then I think one of the follow-up calls was just it was in somebody's head and they saw a large dog and it was already in their head, and I think
exactly.
I think it's
so
hilarious. But
I'm doing that. I already sold the house since then, so I'm fine on that. And, you know, I mean, I've got a granddaughter. So, you know, Knox County has been my home all my life, and except 3 years when my husband and I got transferred to Nashville with his job, and then we got right back as quick as we could. But I'll never.
You could have hit that District 6.
Serve and do something.
You could have jumped in that District 6 school board seat.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Like, I thought about it and I was like, oh, I'm not in District 6. I can't do that. I got to
get it. Now you can run for school board because that's a nonpartisan. So see, you'd be fine.
Right, but I can't because I'm not in the district. I don't live
What district are you in?
I live in 4.
You're in 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, when the time comes up, you never know.
Well,
that is, I would say, has to be probably one of the hardest seats to hold and probably one of the most thankless seats to hold, quite frankly.
I got Virginia Babb to come in here, and she sat down and we talked for a little while. And at least as of right now, until we get past this COVID thing and get back to closer to normal, she has no desire to continue this if it's going to be under this pandemic view for the next however long. She's like, I don't think I'm coming back. And I was like, all right. Well.
I just couldn't imagine that because, I mean, you're dealing with people's children.
See, but I think one of the things
that is the most passionate.
Absolutely. Thing. But the problem is that I don't think people really understand how it sits in the kind of division of powers in the county. I don't think people realize how autonomous they are against everything else the county's doing.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's a thankless. I would not want to be doing that right now. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be doing county commission right now with all the health board and everything else, and
right.
You know, because they've got groups mad on one side and groups mad on the other side, and there's not that's not going to be a fun thing either. And Kyle Ward and I are big buddies, so I told him, well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I mean, any of the seats that you serve, if you're really doing it because you really care about the community and you take the time and you put the time in, it's a lot of work. And I appreciate the people that do that, because running is not easy. And then if you're serving, it's not easy because, you know, most everybody has another job on top of the serving. And so that's a rough position to be in, especially in a time like this, because you're not going to make.
Well, right. And like, as hard partisan as things are, like, people hate you because of the party you're affiliated with. And if you're out there trying to sell something or do your day job and your personal political beliefs all of a sudden become part of your day job, that can be a big issue too.
That can put you in a real bad, that can put you in a real bad situation.
I'm just trying to sell you a house. My politics have nothing to do with this. I'm just selling you a house. That's all I'm doing. And they're like, well, but you like Trump, you're stupid, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I'm just selling houses.
I don't talk politics, but now if they're a Trump supporter, then, you know, we have a lot in common. but so, yeah, it's kind of sad that everything is so politically divided right now, but that's the situation that we're in. And I think that we've got to do the best that we can to try to find a common ground, you know, with each other. And
that was something that I think, I mean, I've thought about it a lot before. I've had a couple different people I've talked about it too. I think for whatever reason, and I blame a good bit of it on social media, but for whatever reason, we start with differences and then dig the trench deeper.
Yep.
Instead of being like, hey, we all live in Knox County. We all live in District 18 of Knox County. These are things that we have in common. We shop at this mall. We go to this place. We all like our Krogers or our Food Cities or whatever. We all like our Vols or whatever it is, and start there. But we don't start there on anything anymore. We start with the you're tall or short, and so I hate you for that, and then I'm going to figure out other things that I don't like about you, and that's all I'm going to talk to you about.
I think that's exactly right, and that is definitely not the angle to come at it from, because just like you say, I mean, in District 18 we all care about the schools, and that's a common ground that we have. Now, we may have differences of what you want that to look like, but we want our kids to be safe and have a good education, and
right.
And it's the same thing with roads, and it's the same thing with neighborhoods and everything. So we really, I think we all have a lot more in common than we think, but it has just gotten so divided.
And like full disclosure for me, we've had different people on here that I thought just because of their affiliations or their kind of stated public things on situation X, Y, or Z, that I was like, I'm gonna have a hard time talking to this person for very long or whatever. But everybody I've had on the show, there's not a single person that I can that I can think to any degree that they ever said something that I thought was malintent. I might have disagreed with them on whether I thought it was the right or wrong thing to do with the situation, but I never felt like anybody has some devious or personal gain intent in what they're doing. I think they're out there doing what they think is best for their group, whatever it is, whether it's county or city or whatever.
Right.
Like I'm very optimistic about that part of it. But there's still almost everybody too, at least anybody that had a party affiliation that I've talked to also had a little bit of partisanshipness to them, which is a little concerning to me. Like, you didn't get this one, so I'll put this one officially on the books, even though it doesn't matter. I think Kyle Ward was the first interview I did after you, and just in the middle of that interview, it dawned on me that whether or not Knoxville should go metro, and so I've been talking to everybody about it, trying to get everybody's thoughts. You don't think so?
No, we actually lived in Nashville. We got married and transferred the same week in '89, and we lived down there for 3 years. And then, like I said, could not get home quick enough because we're both from here. And they had metro government.
Right.
No.
What about it though? I mean, because this is what I'm curious about. I started off my gut feels like it would be the overall right thing to do. It would be cost effective. It would trim some of the size of and overlapping departments and stuff like that. That's my gut reaction to it. And the more I've talked about it, the more I understand it's more complicated than I can probably wrap my head around simply. But at this point, it's pure curiosity on what it could look like. And so
you know what I saw this as a huge difference in Nashville. They were actually just, if I'm not mistaken, and I would have to go back and look, so I don't want anybody to say I'm lying, but I'm pretty sure that it had just came into place when we got there. But there's a huge difference between city of Knoxville and Knox County, right? So there are some overlapping things, but there is typically a fundamental difference in the county and the city. The city's usually going for more businesses and more commercial stuff and that kind of stuff. And quite frankly, they tend to be a little bit more liberal in the city. And most cities are that way. I mean, that's kind of how that goes.
Right. And
the county tends to be a little bit more conservative. And so they don't want to be paying double taxes. I mean, that's why all my clients want to be in the county. I don't want to be paying double taxes. And so you've got that. So how would the tax break down? Because now the county's going to be paying what the city's paying. Well, we don't want to do that, or we would be living in the city. And so there's such a culture to it. And I think I've always said Knox County, I'm from Karnes, and Karnes does not like change. We do not like change. and that's just what that is. And so, but Knox County is a lot like that. And I think we're getting a lot better than when I grew up here. But there's a lot of people that are really comfortable. They're county people, and that's what they know, and that's what they like.
Right. And I'm a county person too, but on the tax side of it, one of the things it's like, okay, well, obviously the property tax is different, but I would guess at least that as far as sales tax collections in the county, the majority of those are in city. Even if you live in county, I would say that 90% of my sales tax I spend is in a business that is located in the city. And so that's like, I'm still confused on that. Like, this is something I need to find some the county finance guy to come in and talk to about it. Cause I'm still confused cause I know that it's like 6% goes to the state and the other 2.25 or whatever, 3.25. No, 7% goes to the state. The 2.25 stays at the local.
Right.
As far as sales tax collection goes, but if
and then you're in a weird situation. You've got the chief of police and you've got the sheriff.
Right.
And then how do you merge the city and the county commission and the city council? Right. And I mean, it's just I don't know. I think I like the way that we have it here.
Right.
I'm not saying that,
I will bypass your house when I'm going to get my petition filled out if I decide to make it a ballot item. But I just think
you stop by, I'll still sign it. Let me tell you something. I want to tell you really quick before we get off here.
You're good.
I've listened to your podcast, and not just the ones I was on. And I have to tell you, I wish that our news was as fair.
Oh, she's blowing smoke, people. She's making stuff up.
No, I'm not. I wish that the news people were as fair as you are.
I wish they put the energy and effort in that I do, and I don't put a lot of effort in. And that's what I like. Well, the tiger thing was fun. The airplane thing was fun, but like, I follow a couple of the news stations on Facebook just to try to keep up with stuff. And it's UT football or Taco Bell is changing these things from the menu. And I could really care less about what Taco Bell is doing in the menu. If I cared about what Taco Bell was doing with their menu, I'd go to Taco Bell's website and find out about it. I don't feel like that is that. I don't even know how much they pay a reporter, but if that reporter got paid to do that story, and I guess I need to go full in on journalism if that's the job, because I can do that. I'll go sit at Taco Bell. And interview managers.
I really have appreciated listening because you have your opinions and you have your views, and but you are fair to everybody that you talk to, and you really ask questions because you really want to know the answers to try to make yourself understand so you can educate other people. And that really should be what the media is for. And we're far away from that. Right. So
I think
for your podcast, I hope that you're very successful because I can really, and I'm really not blowing smoke, I promise.
Well, I do appreciate that. The problem for me if we're going to go on like the full business thought process of doing this show is I've thought about this in my personal business as well, is nobody's doing this. And is that because nobody's buying it? Not nobody, but not enough people to pay the bills. Like we're not at a point where we can, I mean, I could advertise if somebody wants to advertise with me, almostinagreement@gmail.com. But the question is there a reason this doesn't exist? Cause I certainly didn't make up the idea, but, is there a reason that this format doesn't sell because people don't want to put forth the effort? Or is it like you're saying, which is my hope, not just on the business side, but just personally and morally, my hope is that it's just people got used to that's not what the news does anymore, and that they're actually hungry for it. They just got to find it. And what used to be you turn on the TV and it's right in front of your face because that's what's there, turned into this, it's either national news, it's whatever Trump said or Pelosi did today, or it's really random, and it's not even necessarily the feel-goody stories. I love the feel-goody stories. I love that they finish the news every night with something positive to at least finish the show, making you feel like the world's not going to end tomorrow. But it's, murder stories or, just random, right now I get it too. And I've tried to be conscious about talking COVID less because that's all the news is anymore. But I feel like there's at least a unconsciously news shifted into this thing that doesn't really provide value to normal people on a day-to-day basis, and especially in local politics. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of money being spent, and there's a lot of people involved, and we barely know anything about them. And I think
that's what I was so shocked about with our race, because District 18 was a pretty big pretty big deal because you had Martin Daniel leaving. You had two people running, Eddie ran for mayor, and we just kind of expected that Channel 10 would do the do the show with us, and none of that.
Right.
It's just like, wow, this is the stuff that's really affecting us on the local level. Not that the national doesn't, but the local level is where it's really hitting us at home.
And I
was just shocked by that.
And for me personally, I wish we. It's an activity thing on again, me blaming voters. We as voters need to pay attention to that, because the president and the speaker and those people, they don't make they're at least not supposed to make major world shifting decisions on that hits us locally. Yes, they are supposed to make world shifting decisions on whether we're bombing some other country again or not. That is their job. But for how we operate on a day-to-day life here in Knox County, even Burchett has a very soft, should have a very soft touch on what we have to deal with here day to day. It's Kincannon and Jacobs and Lee and their House and Senates and commissions and all their representative groups and stuff like that. Those are the ones that are supposed to be in charge of taking care of these things that really, really affect me and you on a day-to-day basis. Not the national level people. And that's a theme that I don't know how to fix. And I think that's, if I have a goal in this other than to retire to do this full time, that premise right there is probably the top of my list, is that it is our fault as voters that we pay more attention to the people that should have the least effect on us in politics. And we pay that way, and we pay the money that way too.
Yeah, it's scary how it affects on the school level, it affects on our local level, our tax level, everything is right here. It's not as sensationalized as Trump or Pelosi or whoever, but to me, it's really, really important. So I was kind of shocked that it didn't garner more attention. I'm shocked that really Gloria Johnson and Elaine Davis didn't garner more attention, and it just is kind of disappointing, because it's these are going to be your representatives.
We're joking about trying to host a debate. I know
that would be fabulous.
I go Becky Massey and Jane George were on the NBC morning show yesterday.
Right.
I didn't get a chance to watch it. I got to go see if I can find it online. But I was talking to a buddy of mine that owns a bar restaurant, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do a thing." He's like, "What is it?" I was like, "A political debate." He's like, "Nope." I was like, I can respect that. When I was in the bar game, I there's number one rule in keeping a peace and safety in your bar is don't allow politics and religion conversations.
Well, that's exactly, and that is kind of a bad situation, but
that's exactly the opposite of what we need to be.
It's just so important.
Yeah, it is.
It kind of just amazes me, and that's a big race over there with Elaine Davis and Gloria Johnson, and all of them are. But that's one that really affects a lot of people, because there is a huge difference between those two. I'll have to get them after I get these. I think that'd be great. I'm gonna try to get a hold of them.
Listen. I'm gonna try to get a hold of these 3 people that have volunteered to go into hell for District 6 school board, and we're gonna keep going. Like it's getting more interesting as it gets going, because I'm better understanding, and I'm hoping I'm not losing my my naivety in asking questions, because I really actually think it's important to slow down and ask the little questions that people assume everybody already knows the answer to, because I'm thinking that less people know the answer than do. All right, Ms. Gina, I got to go pick up the kids from school.
Well, let's stay in touch. You go get the kids, and best of luck to you.
All right, outro music, everybody. Ms. Gina Oster, everybody. Really appreciate her coming in, taking the time to kind of give the story around what was happening, because it isn't about, it never was about, I want to win so bad, I don't care, I want you guys to change the rules for me, or anything like that. It was that the rules were a problem, and they all knew it beforehand, and the longer things went on, the more things got out of control, and it just kind of, like we talked about, it shined a light on a weird little spot in the subsection of the way the state Republican Party works. So we are almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Hit us up. We're taking advertisers if you're into that side of things. But we'll be back. I'm trying to get Kyle Ward come in here. I've got the state LP on the docket. I'm trying to get the Libertarian Party, because you know me, I like to pretend like I'm a Libertarian and whatnot. Trying to get the chair of the state party to come on and talk to us about some of the different Libertarian candidates that are going on around the state. We don't have anybody here in the east side of town, but at least it's a start on that side of the conversation. We're almost in agreement, almost in agreement at gmail.com, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.